During a dramatic return to the House of Commons, Nigel Farage stood up to speak, grabbing attention not only from Parliament, but also across the country. The former Brexit Party leader and now Reform UK frontman delivered a fiery critique of the government's industrial and environmental policies, centered around the fate of British steel. Farage began by calling for the nationalization of British steel, insisting it would not cost much initially because the company has been devalued significantly. According to him, Chinese ownership of the plant was a poor decision made by the Johnson government, especially since a viable offer had reportedly been on the table from a Turkish steel company. Farage, along with Richard Tice and other political allies, had warned against selling such a strategic asset to China years ago. With Port Talbot already closed, he warned that Britain risks becoming the only major nation in the world without its own primary steel production. Farage accused Labour of political theatre, suggesting their recent Saturday parliamentary session was more about optics, portraying themselves as protectors of the British worker than real action. He slammed successive governments for neglecting British manufacturing, blaming net zero climate policies for what he called the de-industrialization of Britain. Citing the loss of aluminium refining and domestic steelmaking capabilities, Farage pointed to net zero as a driving factor behind Britain's decline in industrial strength. In his view, the focus on foreign energy dependence and environmental posturing has backfired. Farage rejected suggestions that U.S. tariffs under Donald Trump were responsible for Britain's steel industry woes. Instead, he argued the issue was rooted in domestic mismanagement, weak energy policy, and an over-reliance on Chinese partnerships. Reform UK, often viewed as a right-wing, low-tax party, surprised many by advocating state intervention in this case. Farage explained that this stance was rooted in patriotism and a commitment to British jobs and communities. Nationalization, he argued, was not about ideology, but about practicality and national interest. He emphasized the strategic importance of steel, particularly with new defense spending and infrastructure projects like a proposed theme park in Bedfordshire, all of which would require vast quantities of high-quality steel. Critics questioned whether reviving British steel would simply shift the financial burden onto the public and increase costs across British industries. Farage countered that with competitive energy pricing and strategic management, British steel could be both economically and practically viable. He noted the superior quality of steel produced in Scunthorpe, particularly for military and industrial use, making a strong case for its preservation. Addressing net zero policies, Farage pointed out the inconsistency in Britain importing coal from Japan, while rejecting coal from Cumbria. He argued that local coal use made far more environmental and economic sense. Workers in Scunthorpe even expressed their preference for Cumbrian coal over foreign imports. Farage suggested that the public is beginning to recognize the contradictions and irrationality in the current environmental strategy. When asked if he still wanted a referendum on net zero, Farage admitted he had mostly been provoking debate. However, he did say that net zero could become the next Brexit, an issue where the political elite are significantly out of touch with the broader public sentiment. He drew comparisons to the Redcar steel plant closure in 2015, where operations shifted to India, worsening both environmental and economic outcomes. Turning to U.S. relations, Farage was asked whether he'd reached out to Donald Trump or the current administration to push for a UK-US trade deal. He replied cautiously, noting that as a prominent UK political leader now, it would be inappropriate to interfere directly with government negotiations. Still, he emphasized that if the government needed his help, he'd be willing to step in. Farage wrapped up the interview with a strong reaffirmation of his belief in protecting strategic industries like steel, rejecting the idea that Reform UK's support for nationalization was inconsistent with its principles. He reiterated the party's commitment to family, community, and country, insisting that letting British steel collapse would betray all three. Meanwhile, another issue is brewing in Wales, where farmers are protesting against a controversial high-voltage pylon project. Backed by Energy Secretary Ed Miliband, GreenGen Cymru plans to construct a 60-mile line of steel pylons through unspoiled countryside to connect wind farms to the national grid. Some of these structures will stand over 100 feet tall and cut through sensitive valleys like Towie and Taff. Opposition from local landowners has been fierce. Over 100 landowners have refused to allow surveyors access to their land unless underground cabling is considered. Many argue that burying the cables would be more environmentally responsible and would preserve the region's beauty, which is renowned worldwide. National Geographic recently highlighted the Heart of Wales Railway as one of the world's most scenic train routes, an asset locals fear could be tainted by the towering pylons. Civil legal action has already been taken against more than a dozen landowners, with GreenGen seeking court injunctions. Some farmers now face potential criminal charges. One business owner, Wynne Jenkins, reluctantly signed an agreement after being warned of possible legal costs upwards of $50,000. He warned that the project could devastate his business. Other campaigners, including tenant farmers and action groups, like the Landovery Pylon Community Action Group, have pledged to continue resisting. They argue that the government's policies are being forced through with little regard for the countryside or community impact. MP Ann Davies likened the dispute to a battle between David and Goliath when she joined over 80 protesters in court. Critics say that rather than offering fair negotiation, GreenGen and the government are intimidating landowners into compliance. A recently announced $250 a year energy bill discount for those living near pylons has been widely condemned as an inadequate concession. A GreenGen spokesperson defended the project, stating that infrastructure is vital for achieving net zero goals and that most agreements with landowners had been reached amicably. But for many, the damage is already done. With lawsuits ongoing and public trust eroding, the controversy threatens to derail key parts of the government's climate strategy. As these debates unfold, the divide between policymakers and the public seems to grow deeper. Whether on the future of steel or the shape of the countryside, it's clear that national interest, environmental goals, and economic realities are clashing more than ever. What do you think? Should British steel be nationalized? Are these net zero projects helping or hurting the UK? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more updates on UK politics and beyond.